Did you know that something as simple as reheating your leftovers could be quietly hurting your health? It's true. We all love the convenience of reaching into the fridge for last night's dinner, saving time and money. It feels thrifty, smart, a little comfort in a bowl or on a plate. But for some foods, that second trip through the microwave or oven isn't just changing the taste, it's potentially creating toxins, encouraging dangerous bacteria, or changing the food in ways that are anything but good for you. We're at an age where our bodies are a little less forgiving, a little more sensitive to things that wouldn't have bothered us years ago. The painful reality is that a seemingly innocent habit can lead to upset stomachs, food poisoning, or even worse issues over time because our digestive and immune systems aren't quite as robust as they used to be. There's a secret lurking in your fridge. A few specific foods that are best enjoyed fresh or discarded, not given a second chance in the heat. In this video, we're going to uncover 5 common foods you might be reheating right now that you really should stop. We'll look at why they become problematic and what you should do instead. Stay with me, because understanding this could save you a lot of discomfort and protect your health. Watch to the end for something that will surprise you. Now, let's dive into the first food that often causes trouble when reheated. And it might be something you have quite often. I'm talking about rice. Yes, that humble staple, whether it's white, brown, or fried rice from your favorite takeaway, can become a breeding ground for something nasty if not handled correctly after cooking. The problem with rice isn't the reheating itself, but what can happen to it before it gets reheated. Uncooked rice often contains spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. These spores can survive the cooking process if cooked rice is left standing at room temperature for too long. These spores can multiply and produce toxins. These toxins are heat-resistant, meaning reheating the rice, even thoroughly, won't destroy them. When you eat rice containing these toxins, you can experience food poisoning, with symptoms like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. For us, those symptoms can be much more severe and take longer to recover from. A mild upset stomach for a younger person might mean a day of discomfort. For someone over 60, it could lead to dehydration, weakness, and a trip to the doctor. The key here is rapid cooling and proper storage immediately after cooking. If you're not going to eat rice straight away, cool it down as quickly as possible, ideally within an hour. You can do this by spreading it out on a plate or shallow dish, not leaving it in a hot pot with the lid on. Once cool, pop it in the fridge. Cooked rice should only be kept in the fridge for a maximum of 1 day before reheating. And when you do reheat it, make sure it's piping hot all the way through. But honestly, the safest bet, especially if you're unsure how long it's been sitting out, or if it's already a day old, is just to throw it away. It feels wasteful, I know, but the risk just isn't worth it. Think about a Sunday roast chicken you've made. You carve it, you eat some, and the leftover rice sits on the counter while you enjoy dessert or clean up. That window, even just an hour or two in a warm kitchen, is where the bacteria can start to wake up and multiply. Putting it into a big, deep container while still warm and sticking it straight into the fridge isn't ideal either, because it cools down slowly, leaving that warm, inviting temperature range for bacteria to thrive for longer. Portioning it into smaller, shallow containers helps it cool faster. And that leftover takeaway rice, you often don't know how long it sat out in the restaurant before you even got it home. That's why health authorities are particularly cautious about reheating takeaway rice. So, the rule of thumb for rice is cook only what you need. Cool any leftovers very quickly. Store in the fridge for no more than a day, and reheat thoroughly. Once, if in doubt, throw it out. Your health is more valuable than a bowl of leftover rice. It's a simple change, but it significantly reduces the risk of an unpleasant or even dangerous bout of food poisoning. Moving on to another food that might surprise you, because it's something many of us rely on for quick, healthy meals. I'm talking about chicken and other poultry. Reheating chicken can change its protein structure. Now, that might sound a bit technical, but what it means in simple terms is that it can become harder to digest. The bigger concern, however, is the risk of contamination with Salmonella bacteria, which is commonly found in raw or undercooked chicken. While thorough cooking kills Salmonella, improper cooling and storage of cooked chicken can still allow other bacteria to multiply rapidly. When you reheat chicken that hasn't been stored correctly, or if you don't reheat it evenly or to a sufficient temperature, you're risking food poisoning. Symptoms like fever, abdominal cramps, and severe diarrhea can be particularly dangerous for older adults, leading to dehydration and complications. Imagine you roasted a chicken for dinner. You carved it, and you have leftovers. If that chicken sits on the counter for a couple of hours while you visit with family or watch a movie, bacteria can start to grow. Putting it directly into the fridge while still warm can also slow down the cooling process, leaving it in the danger zone temperature range for longer. The best way to handle leftover chicken is to cool it quickly after serving. Just like with rice, break up large pieces or carve the meat off the bone to help it cool faster. Store it in airtight containers in the fridge and aim to eat it within 1 to 2 days. When reheating chicken, especially larger pieces, it's crucial to ensure it's heated all the way through. The internal temperature should reach at least 165 degrees, 74 degrees Celsius, to kill any potential bacteria that may have grown during storage. Microwaving can sometimes heat unevenly, leaving cold spots where bacteria can survive. If you're reheating in a microwave, it's best to stir it partway through or let it stand for a minute afterwards to allow the heat to distribute. Reheating in an oven or on the stovetop is often more reliable for achieving even heating. The change in protein structure when reheating can also make the chicken taste dry or tough, which isn't appealing anyway. But the real risk is the potential for bacterial growth and the subsequent food poisoning. It's another situation where being a bit overly cautious is better than being sorry. If your leftover chicken has been in the fridge for 3 or 4 days, even if it smells okay, the bacterial load could be high enough to cause problems, particularly for a more sensitive system. Think about a scenario where you've made a big batch of chicken soup or a chicken casserole. It's important to cool large pots quickly before refrigerating. You can divide the soup or casserole into smaller containers, or even place the pot in a sink of ice water to speed up the cooling process before putting it in the fridge. When reheating a large quantity of soup or casserole with chicken in it, make sure it comes to a rolling boil for at least a minute to ensure everything is piping hot. For simpler pieces of chicken, like grilled chicken breast, slicing it thinly before reheating can help it heat through more quickly and evenly, reducing the risk of cold spots. The bottom line with chicken and other poultry leftovers is swift cooling, short storage time in the fridge, and thorough, even reheating if you choose to reheat it. But if you're ever in doubt about how long it's been stored or how it was cooled, it's safer to err on the side of caution and simply discard it. Prioritizing food safety with poultry is a fundamental step in protecting yourself from potentially serious illness. Beyond those, we need to think about leafy greens like spinach, lettuce, and other vegetables in that family. Now, you might be thinking, spinach. How can reheating spinach be bad for you? Well, it's not the spinach itself that's the direct problem, but rather compounds it contains called nitrates. Leafy green vegetables are naturally high in nitrates. These nitrates are generally harmless. However, when cooked, leafy greens are reheated, especially repeatedly. These nitrates can be converted into nitrites and then into nitrosamines. While small amounts of nitrites are used safely as preservatives in some cured meats, in our bodies, and particularly with repeated exposure from improperly handled vegetables, these compounds can be harmful. Nitrosamines, in particular, have been linked to an increased risk of certain types of cancer in some studies. The risk is higher for infants, which is why reheating foods like spinach is strongly discouraged for baby food. While the risk might be lower for adults compared to infants, our body's ability to process and eliminate these compounds changes as we age. Chronic, Low-level exposure from regularly reheating foods high in nitrates could potentially contribute to health issues over time. The problem is exacerbated by how these vegetables are stored and reheated. If cooked spinach or other greens are left at room temperature for a while, bacteria can also begin the conversion of nitrates to nitrites. Then, reheating just continues the process. Think about making a large dish that includes spinach, like a quiche, a frittata, or a pasta sauce. If you have leftovers, and you reheat them multiple times, each time you're potentially increasing the concentration of these less than ideal compounds. The best way to enjoy leafy greens is fresh or cooked and eaten immediately. If you do have leftovers, cool them quickly and store them in the fridge for no more than a day or two. And if you must reheat them, reheat only the portion you plan to eat, and only reheat it once. Avoid reheating large quantities of dishes containing spinach or other high-nitrate greens multiple times. For instance, if you have a big pan of saag paneer, instead of reheating the whole lot every time you want a small portion, it's better to scoop out the amount you need into a smaller dish and reheat just that. Better yet, if you know you'll have leftovers, try to portion out the dish before cooling and refrigerating, so you can grab a single serving from the fridge that hasn't been repeatedly heated and cooled. It's about minimizing the time the cooked greens spend in that lukewarm danger zone and reducing the number of heating cycles. This applies not just to spinach, but also to beetroot, celery, and even some types of lettuce used in cooked dishes or soups. While the immediate risk of food poisoning from reheating greens might be lower compared to rice or chicken, the potential long-term effects from the conversion of nitrates are something to be mindful of, especially when we're focused on maintaining our health as we age. It's another simple adjustment. Eat your greens fresh when possible, cool leftovers properly, and be cautious about multiple reheats. That can contribute to your overall well-being. Next on our list is a common culprit in many meals, one that often gets tossed back in the pan or microwave the next day: potatoes. Whether they are boiled, roasted, or part of a stew or curry, cooked potatoes can also pose a risk when reheated if not handled correctly. The issue with potatoes is similar to that of rice. They can contain spores of the same bacterium, Bacillus cereus, which we talked about earlier. These spores can survive cooking if cooked potatoes are left to cool slowly at room temperature. These spores can germinate and produce toxins that cause food poisoning. Reheating the potatoes won't destroy these toxins. This is particularly a risk with dishes like mashed potatoes, potato salad, or boiled potatoes that are often cooked in larger quantities and can take a long time to cool down, especially if left in the pot. Think about making a big batch of mashed potatoes for a family dinner. If the leftovers sit on the counter for several hours while you chat and clean up, those spores in the potatoes are getting the perfect opportunity to become active and start producing those nasty toxins. Just like with rice, rapid cooling is absolutely key for cooked potatoes you plan to save. Spread them out in a shallow container, or even cool them in a sink of ice water before refrigerating. They should be put in the fridge as soon as possible, ideally within an hour or two of cooking. Once refrigerated, cooked potatoes should be eaten within a day or two. When you reheat potatoes, make sure they are heated through completely. For things like roasted potatoes or boiled potatoes, reheating in an oven or frying them in a pan tends to work better than a microwave for achieving even heat and reaching a safe temperature quickly. Microwaved potatoes can sometimes have cold spots. For mashed potatoes, reheating on the stovetop with a little milk or butter, stirring frequently, ensures even heating. But again, the main danger comes from improper cooling and storage before reheating. It's that window between cooking and refrigerating where the trouble starts. This is why things like potato salads left out at picnics can be particularly risky. The combination of temperature and time creates an ideal environment for bacterial growth and toxin production. For us seniors, experiencing food poisoning from potatoes could mean severe symptoms, dehydration, and a longer recovery period than it would for someone younger. So, just like with rice. The safest approach with cooked potatoes is to cool them quickly, store them properly in the fridge for a short period, and reheat thoroughly. Once. If you're unsure about how long the potatoes were left out after cooking, or if they've been in the fridge for more than a couple of days, the most prudent thing to do is to discard them. It's a small precaution that can prevent a potentially serious health issue. Finally, let's talk about oil, specifically, the risk associated with reheating certain types of cooking oils. You might have heard about this one before, and it's particularly important for us to pay attention to reheating oils, especially polyunsaturated oils like vegetable oil, corn oil, or soybean oil. To high temperatures multiple times can cause them to break down. When oils break down, they can form harmful compounds, including aldehydes, which have been linked to various health problems, including heart disease and certain cancers. This is especially a concern when deep frying. If you deep fry food and then save the used oil to reheat and fry with again and again, you are repeatedly heating that oil to very high temperatures. Each time, the oil degrades further, and the level of harmful compounds increases. While restaurants that deep fry food have strict regulations and filtration systems to manage their oils, we often don't at home. Frying once with an oil and then discarding it is generally fine. The risk comes from reusing the same oil multiple times, particularly if it's heated until it starts smoking or looks dark and smells rancid. Even simpler things, like using the same oil in a pan to fry eggs, then reheating the same oil later to fry something else, while perhaps less risky than deep frying, still contributes to oil degradation. The quality of the oil is key. Olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, is more stable at high temperatures than many polyunsaturated oils and doesn't break down as easily. But even olive oil isn't meant to be repeatedly heated to scorching temperatures. The healthiest approach when cooking with oil, whether frying or sautéing, is to use just enough oil for the task and avoid letting it get excessively hot, especially to the point where it smokes. If you are deep frying, which is something many of us might do less often now, it's best to use an oil with a high smoke point and discard the oil after 1 or maybe 2 uses, depending on what you fried and how hot it got. Never mix new oil with old oil, and never reheat oil that has gone cloudy, smells bad, or looks dark. These are all signs it has already broken down significantly. For everyday cooking, focusing on healthier fats used appropriately, like olive oil for sautéing, and avoiding the practice of repeatedly reheating and reusing large quantities of oil is a simple but important step for long-term health. Our bodies are more sensitive to inflammatory compounds as we age, and avoiding these degraded oils is a way to reduce that inflammatory burden. So, while it might feel thrifty to save and reuse cooking oil, especially frying oil, it could be costing you more in terms of health down the line. It's one of those hidden dangers that isn't immediately apparent, but has cumulative effects. So, we've talked about rice and the lurking spores, chicken and the risk of bacteria and protein changes, leafy greens and nitrates, potatoes and those same sneaky spores, and finally, cooking oils and their breakdown into harmful compounds. It might seem like a lot to remember, but it boils down to some simple principles: rapid cooling, proper storage for a short duration, and careful, single, reheating for many foods. It's not about never having leftovers, but about handling them wisely. Our bodies, especially as we get older, are less resilient to foodborne illnesses and the effects of harmful compounds. Taking these precautions isn't about being overly cautious. It's about being smart and protecting our precious health and independence. Remember, small changes in how we handle our food can make a big difference in preventing uncomfortable, or even dangerous, health issues. Don't let a simple leftover meal turn into a day or two of feeling unwell, or worse. Your well-being is worth the extra minute to cool food properly, or the cost of discarding leftovers that are past their prime. We've covered some important ground today about foods you should be careful about reheating. It's easy to fall into old habits, But being aware of these specific risks is the first step towards making better choices for your health. Think about the meals you typically cook and reheat. Are any of these foods on your regular menu making a conscious effort to change how you cool and store them? Or simply choosing to prepare smaller portions to avoid leftovers? Can have a real impact. It's empowering to know that you have control over these simple things that can protect you. Don't feel discouraged. Feel empowered. Every small change you make in your daily routine, like properly handling your leftovers, contributes to a healthier, happier you. It's all about living your best life at every age. And that includes enjoying your food safely. If any of this resonated with you, or if you have your own tips or experiences with food safety, I'd love to hear from you. Sharing helps all of us learn and grow. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Also, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future videos packed with simple, actionable advice to help you thrive. We're building a community here focused on healthy, happy living, and I'd be delighted to have you join us. Keep taking care of yourselves, keep making those smart choices, and keep living your best life at every age.